So first of all, welcome to Essex Wildlife Trust's first Urban Wildlife Champions Project webinar. There will be a number of these throughout the year, but this is the initial one to get us kick-started. I'm Danielle Carbot, the Urban Engagement Officer at Essex Wildlife Trust, and I lead the Urban Wildlife Champions Project. So many of you have already met me for initial chat, spoken to me on our Facebook group, or chatted via email. Some of you are new, so if you are yet to book in an initial chat, you can find my email on the toolkit. You can also find it on the agreements form as well. If you aren't sure of my email, I will pop it in the chat later, and it is on the PowerPoint later on too. As we go through as well, you may have questions, so please pop them in the chat too. I will try to answer them at the end, but you'll have to bear with me as I'm the only one managing this webinar today. So I'll look through as you pop them in. Okay, so session one. What is session one for? It's very much a sort of introduction session today to help you kickstart your Urban Wildlife Champions journey. I will give you an outline of the project today, insight into our Wilder Essex vision, and tips on how to take the lead and champion wildlife in your local community. But first, a little background about the trust. Some of you might be members, some of you might not be. We've got a variety of people, and it doesn't matter if you're not a member. But the trust was actually founded in 1959 by volunteers, and we now manage over 87 reserves, which equates to more than 8,400 acres. So we do manage a lot of the wildlife across Essex. We protect wildlife through landscape conservation. We inspire a lifelong love of nature through outdoor education. And we give nature a louder voice through our campaigns and projects. And all this is supported by over 39,000 wonderful members. Recently, the Trust brought to life its Wilder Essex vision with an aim to think globally but act locally. So although we have many nature reserves, they only encompass 2.3% of our total land in Essex. So immediate action to support nature outside of these boundaries is required. We have entered the most vital decade for nature, and if we want to stop biodiversity decline and tackle the climate emergency, it really is now or never. So through our Wilder Essex vision, we believe everyone has a role to play. Essex should be thriving with wildlife, where our landscapes are connected, wildlife corridors and stepping stones are established, gardens and mini nature reserves, houses are integrated with bird and bat boxes, and towns and cities are full of wild spaces. Now, obviously, a lot of you already know that. I've spoken to a lot of you about that already, and some of you are even involved in all of that with your projects, developing some of those sort of wilder corridors and stepping stones. You may also recognise some of these graphics from our Wilder Vision document. If you do want to find out more about our Wilder Vision and how we're looking at that landscape conservation, then do visit our website, www.essexwildlifetrust.org.uk, and there's a Wilder Essex vision that you can have a look at. So, introduction about the trust itself and our vision and what we're looking for, what we're trying to achieve. And through that, we have developed the Urban Wildlife Champions Project, which we launched back in March. And this was to put a focus on our urban landscape, our villages, towns and cities, which can be often viewed as void of nature or removed from nature. However, we actually have many species that live and thrive in our urban landscapes. And wherever you live in nature, it can be found and welcomed right on your doorstep. For example, hedgehogs, they've become a regular garden visitor. Insects have thrived on our green spaces and margins. Bats find homes in our old buildings and trees, hiding away in small gaps and crevices. And swifts are regular summer visitors who nest under tiles and small gaps in our roofs. So there really is a plethora almost of wildlife that we can be welcoming in our urban area. And that is the hope of our Urban Wildlife Champions project. What we really want to do is protect and enhance Essex's wildlife in these places, connecting to the wilder landscape. Really, that's because actually 80% of our population in Essex now live in urban areas. and these are growing. So often that can fragment and degrade the habitats many of our species rely on, and also creates a disconnect between people and nature. So not only do we need to protect these spaces for wildlife, people also benefit from them too. Our health and well-being, as I'm sure you all know, is intrinsically connected to nature all around us, and science tells us there are multiple benefits to spending time in green and blue spaces. So to achieve that, we need you. And I really am thankful to so many people who have signed up already to take the lead in our towns and villages, because that's what our towns and villages need. They need us to take action for wildlife. So perhaps you're an individual who has an idea and needs help getting started, or perhaps you're already in a group but need support taking new steps to protect our wildlife, or perhaps you are already taking actions but want to be part of a community making real change. And we really want this to be a people-powered movement that is community-led. So at this point, I'm fully aware that you might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed, because I've just thrown at you the Wilder Essex vision, and then of course I've said we need you. However, going back to that original line, we can think globally but act locally. And there really are a number of actions that you guys can take to make a difference, because this project really puts community at the heart of the change. And so each project is flexible in terms of timing and size and bespoke to that location. So however big or small your action is, or however big or small your ideas is, if this happens across every district of Essex, we will really start to see a difference. So this graphic here, some of you will have seen in the toolkit. That toolkit you get when you sign up on our landing page on the website. So I've just pulled out some of the actions that you can take, because I know lots of you are still thinking about the actions that you can take and what you might want to do in your own locality. I know some of you have already decided, but this might give you an idea of what else you can do as your project evolves. So number one, you might feel troubled about pesticides being used in your area, want to support want to maybe make a campaign that supports the change in pesticides, maybe persuading your council to think of alternatives and embrace the importance of our wildflowers in urban areas, which, you know, more often than not are referred to as weeds. So that could be something you do in your town or village. Or number two, you may have noticed that your green spaces are mostly just for amenity uses, where the grass is regularly kept at a short length so wildflowers can't establish and provide nectar for our pollinating insects. So working with us, Essex Wildlife Trust, and your local council, areas of green spaces could be naturalised to provide those stepping stones for wildlife. If you did this, you'd hopefully be able to see the emergence of some of our wildflowers like Self-Heal, which is a lovely purple flower, Creeping Buttercup, red and white campion, and black medic, which is actually a really tiny yellow flower. In some cases where I've seen this done, we've actually seen wild orchids pop up too. Another action you could take is number three. It's fairly similar, but it's taking action specifically on road verges. So you might notice that half the time your road verges in your village or your town are covered in dead mown grass. This dead mown grass can actually suppress any wildflower growth. And I know listening to many people out there, they don't actually like the way it looks either. So actually we've got a few people at the moment who are looking at developing projects where they're looking at road verges and trialling different management plans on those areas to improve the grassland habitat, which is a really important habitat along with our woodlands, and actually can sequester just as much carbon as our woodlands. Number four, which sort of ties in both of those thoughts there, is creating insect pathways in your town or village using the Bug Life's bee lines. So if you haven't heard of those, it's a really amazing initiative. They've created a map for the whole of the UK looking at the best places that you can have wildflower corridors. And this really makes sure that insects can get from A to B through a network of habitats. If insects don't have access to nectar-rich habitats to give them energy, they will be confined to the habitat they are in and can't roam further. So with those sort of road verges and green spaces that are mown regularly, they don't provide that nectar for our insects. Or it could be number five. As mentioned earlier, you might want to support your urban hedgehogs or swifts, encouraging neighbours and entire streets even to install hedgehog highways or swift boxes. Hedgehogs can actually walk up to 2 kilometres per day and do need to be able to roam through a number of gardens to forage enough food. Swifts also nest in the same place every year. With many people installing brand new roofs and renovating buildings, many nests are being disturbed or removed. So swift box is another really good way to tackle this problem, and they give them the much needed habitat they fly all the way over here for. So you might want to do a project that focuses on either of those. Number 6, again, you might want to just focus on gardening for wildlife, supporting areas your village or town transitioning to friendlier ways of gardening. Our gardens make up an enormous proportion of our landscape. I think it's something like 16 million in the UK. And so they really can be a lifeline to many of our species. I like to think of them as mini nature reserves. So it might be that you do a campaign around that in your own locality. Number 7, you might perhaps have a love of trees and want to increase the urban tree cover. You could do this by planting mini copses, the right tree in the right place, or it might be that you want to encourage natural expansion of your local woodland patch. This also links to hedgerows, number 7. It might be that you want to increase the hedgerows in your urban landscape, or increase the hedgerows linking a rural landscape to an urban landscape. They are often seen as a very rural habitat, but if we could have hedges in our urban landscapes, that really can be a wonderful wildlife corridor for our insects and our mammals. It might be that you have links to businesses where you can help them transition from installing fences to actually installing hedges. Number 8, you might feel that your local area needs more opportunities to be better connected to nature. Community gardens that focus on native species or vegetable patches that provide free food can be excellent ways to achieve this. Something that has also come up around nature connection is actually creating nature trails for local residents as well. This really is a short list of examples, and the possibilities really are endless. So that is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of projects and imagination, but it's a nice set of ideas if you're not sure where to start. And of course, whatever you choose to do, we will join you on your journey and support you. But of course, deciding on an action is only the start of your journey. So I'm now going to go through some of the things you need to think about to ensure that your project is a success. And I know some of you have already done this already, but I also know some of you listening today are new. So what I've done is I've split it into 3 sections. We're going to look at consideration, and then we're going to look at communication, and then finally the action. So first of all, consideration. For ease, for this one, I have categorised it into sort of a wild space project and a campaigns-based project. So first of all, if you're looking to sort of transform a bit of land or a slice of green, there are things that you need to consider. First of all, you need to establish some key information about the space, such as who owns it, as you'll need permission from the landowner, which in most cases will be the council. You'll need their permission to take any project forward. In this instance, we have found parish councils and town councils to be really interested in various community-led projects, as they are being backed and supported by us, Essex Wildlife Trust. So once you know who owns the land, it's all about looking at what the habitat is. This is a really important step because sometimes people have some really wonderful visions and ideas, but they don't look at what maybe the habitat already has to offer. So you need to find out how it's already being managed. And you might also need to find out what species are already there. And you can do this through simple sort of surveys and maybe in a community group getting together and finding out what plants and maybe insects are already in that area. And obviously, it's the perfect time of year to be doing that. For example, if you are looking to enhance a road verge, you could get a group together and spend some time surveying that road verge, what wildflowers are already there and what insects visit. And this is just one example, and any support needed can be provided by the trust. So you can book in with us site visits and informal chats. I can come along to discuss options and the way forward with you. So we're going to try and make it as easy as possible. You also don't want to do this all by yourself. So there is an element at this stage about reaching out to local people and members of the community that will support you and join you on your journey. Social media is a great way to find others that have similar visions as you. So at this stage, it's really about getting your sort of ideas together, getting people together, and considering your choices. With a campaigns-based project, slightly different, where you might be persuading the council to change something or involving your neighbours and street in supporting wildlife, then there is a little less to do. Again, there is a need to establish key information about the area, for example, what needs addressing, and what's already happening. There are already some fabulous people trying to get the ball rolling with many things. So you don't want to double up on work or overlap with someone else's work. For example, if you want to campaign for a pesticide-free village or town, this is already happening in a number of places in Essex, so do double check first. If you're looking to persuade neighbours or your entire street to create hedgehog highways, you could actually start by making links with people, creating relationships and having chats. I find that having a cup of coffee or a walk with someone can be really beneficial. Okay, so moving on, communication. Once you've done that sort of initial groundwork and you've considered everything, now is the time for communication. And this is the same for, wild land-based projects and campaigns. So you really do need to share your vision with local communities. You need to tell everybody about the actions you and your group are going to take and why. This is really about bringing your local area on the journey with you, because if you don't, it's unlikely you'll be successful. Ways that you could do this could be that you pop an article in your local newspaper, you could share a social media post on a community page, reach out to local organisations that may promote your project or idea, and even if you already have a group set up, share how others can get involved. It's really important that you give that opportunity to people. There might be people in there that share your opinions and thoughts, so it's best to get the message out there. It's also really important to share your vision with your council or landowner you've already been collaborating with, or your neighbour and your street. So this section really is about talking as much as you can to as many people as you can. In this section as well, it may also be that you want to develop skills before taking action. Moving forward, Essex Wildlife Trust will be providing various training in response to the needs of our champions and webinars that will focus on certain actions. So although this is initial webinar today, as we move forward, I'll be putting very focused webinars out there, things that may focus on gardening for wildlife or urban bats or pond restoration, that sort of thing. So watch this space. At this point as well, it's also worth mentioning that you should be communicating with the right people to get funding if you need it. Not in all projects will you need funding. It's only in certain projects where maybe you need to buy equipment or you need to buy, saplings or wildflower seeds or something along those lines. But for this, you will also need to be constituted so your group can get a bank account. It is a pretty simple process and something, again, that Trust can support you with here. But for the moment, what I thought I would do is actually show you some funding that is available now. It's a variety of funding and grants. I've just looked through this week. Some of them are very local. So, for example, Small Sparks Community Fund, that's by Thurrock Council. You've then got some Essex-wide ones, for example, Future of Essex. They're doing a lot of community funding at the moment. And then you also have national ones as well, for example, the Lottery Community Fund. But what we can do as well, depending on who needs funding, is we can point you in the right direction, because there does tend to be community grants and funding out there. But that's just a small example at the moment. So if that's something you're interested right now, do let me know and I can help you out. Okay, so finally, action out of the 3 categories I've put there today. Finally, time to take action. Once you've done the consideration, done all the groundwork, the communication, got everybody involved, this is the fun bit, really, and almost the simpler part of the journey. And really the key to success here is keeping everyone up to date with your progress and measuring your impact. So keep your community involved, keep a record of your action, You might do this through photos, blogs, or social media, whichever suits you. If it suits, mini events where you can invite your local community to be part of the action is also a great way to keep the momentum going. It would also be great if you keep Essex Wildlife Trust up to date too. We will celebrate your efforts and promote them for you. And if available, we can also attend meetups and events where appropriate. If we get stories from the action that you're taking as well, we will also add you to our story maps, which you can see on our dedicated landing page at the moment. This is the landing page that you used to originally sign up to become an urban wildlife champion. This way, everyone can meet our champions and see your wonderful work, and it spreads the message. So it might be that someone sees the wonderful work you're doing, they live close by, and they want to get involved. Just as a quick note, it is in the toolkit, but just in case people haven't read that yet, Essex Wildlife Trust are not liable or responsible for your projects. So as you go through these steps, it is up to you as a champion to stay safe and keep others safe. You can find guidance. There's a page at the end of your toolkit all about keeping safe. And if you do need further assistance for this, again, you can book in a chat with me. There's lots of guidance out there. It's all dependent on sort of project situations and group situations. So if you need further help with keeping safe and the responsibilities you have, please do get in touch. So we've gone through quite a lot there, and I've tried to keep it as broad as possible. Because everybody's projects are amazingly different. And actually, it's been really amazing to talk to people throughout Essex, because some of the ideas that are coming up have been fantastic. We've got a road verge project. We've got a sort of a wilding project in a church. We've got a gardening project. We also have a sort of restoration of wildlife corridors project. Really, there's sort of an endless amount of projects out there that are either getting started or in development, but you might now find it nice to hear someone else's voice. So I've got a couple of people on the call today that are going to just give you sort of a 2-minute outline of their project, what they've been getting up to, and how they've got themselves started. I've had initial chats with both of these people. So if you just give me a moment, what I'm going to do is let them on into the call so that I can see and you can also hear them. Okay, so first of all, we've got John, who is leading the Wiccan Bishop's Biodiversity project. Hi, John.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Oh, amazing.
Good.
Okay, so do you want to just sort of introduce yourself to everybody and give us a bit of an outline of your amazing project?
Well, yeah. So I'm John Lesev, and I live in Wiccan Bishops, and myself and a councillor called Jane Williams, we were talking about doing something to make our village more environmentally friendly about a year ago, and we were talking over the winter, and in February we had a Zoom meeting, and somebody from Wivenhoe joined us and told us what they'd done. We thought that sounds really good, so we thought we could do the same sort of thing. And at the end of February, there's a little group of us who are making bird boxes, and we made about 15 bird boxes and put them around, especially around a place where people go walking a lot, take their dogs walking. There's a lovely little route that people do, with signs saying WBBP, Wiccan Bishops Biodiversity Projects, and little information sheets which were laminated and stuck nearby to tell people what we were doing. So the first thing we were doing was to encourage bird life. So we did that, and you can see in the picture that you've got, we're putting up an owl box. We've got 2 owl boxes up in the village now. We've also got a few bat boxes as well. And so we're encouraging bird life, but we also, that's the easy thing to get people involved. So what we really want is people to encourage insects, which the birds need. So we've had a couple of sessions at our local library on an open day, making insect houses, just little insect, not the big hotels, just little ones that kids can take home and parents and adults can take home, put them in their garden. And we've made a bug sand pit so that certain species, of bees that dig underground, they can use that. We've put a pond in there as well. But what we've got to do is put some information about what we're doing up around there, because obviously letting people know what's going on is really important. And we want more people to help out, because at the moment the work is being done probably by about 4 people, and really to get things moving we need a lot more people, a lot more involvement. Our plans for this year, and we're just sort of starting, is no mow. May to September is what we're looking at. And we've selected certain areas where we're doing that. And then we want to encourage other people to do it in their gardens, where we've got a pond that's silted and overgrown, that I think in the past must have been quite a feature. And a long-term plan is to actually rebuild, dig the pond and get it thriving. Danielle mentioned about having a nature trail. We want to sort of bring that walk that I mentioned before, making it more, a bit more signage, and about what other people can do. Yeah, so we've got quite big plans, but what we really need is to get more people involved, and that's our big challenge.
Thank you very much, John. I really appreciate coming on and sharing. What I really like about your group is that you've started with an idea and you've got sort of a vision to evolve as you go through, and I think that's really important for everybody to hear, because it's not necessarily about achieving everything straight away. It's sort of starting off with some of those easier actions, and then as you go through trying to get people involved and seeing what else you can develop. So thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you.
And we're going to be sharing lots of John on our social media in the next coming sort of months. So fingers crossed, John, someone might be able to see that in Wiccan Bishops, and they might be in contact and want to get involved. So yeah, thank you very much. If anyone has any questions for John, we'll come loop back to the end. But we'll move on to Jenny now. So if you just give me a moment to sort of swap over. Just loading. Just giving you access, Jenny, so it might be that you need to accept and come on. I know you're down as Diane, aren't you? Just bear with us, guys.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, hello. Sorry, it's a bit slow.
Can you see us?
We can't see you, but we can hear you. Oh, yeah, we can see you now. Excellent, right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we've got.
I'm Jenny. This is Diane. Right, my idea is called the Greener Gardens Group, which we abbreviate to 3G. The idea came about because I came to Essex from the Midlands about 3-4 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago now, when my parents were beginning to ail. And they're both now dead, but whilst sort of helping them, I met quite a lot of their older friends, quite a few of whom had gardens and were really struggling to manage their gardens. So I ended up sort of helping a number of people with their gardens that they were struggling to manage. plus my own garden was, when the house we bought, it had basically a yard in the front and nothing much in the back, but was quite a large bit of land. I mean, not massive, but a decent sized garden. So I was doing a lot of gardening, and it occurred to me that actually a lot of the space in towns that is available for wildlife is actually people's gardens. And I found that a lot of the people I was helping had sort of turned parts of their garden into patio, which they then couldn't weed, so they were spraying biocide at it. I had a lot of people who loved insects, butterflies and bees, and every time they saw an aphid, sprayed biocide at it. We're using peat, and basically I was sort of, by gentle negotiation, persuading people to adopt slightly more wildlife friendly practices. And then it occurred to me that actually there are quite a lot of people who like gardening. Gardening is really, really good for sort of emotional well-being, physical health, and also making nice outdoor spaces, and that most people's gardens could sustain small improvements in the direction of being more wildlife friendly without sort of totally scaring people off. So I thought about it for a while, and then I emailed Essex Wildlife Trust with my idea, and they said to contact Danielle. And Danielle came out and met with me, and then she put me in touch with the Colchester local group leader, which is Diane, and the Tendring local group leaders. And this project sort of has arrived at being a project. However, do you want to sort of take over for a bit?
Right. So in the wider sense, 3G, Greener Gardens Group, 3G, is trying to engender environmentally friendly practices to create or maintain gardens or outdoor spaces. For example, using alternative types of methods, from, for example, using weed killer, which Jenny has already mentioned. Slug pellets is a common one to keep the pests away. To do that, it's best to encourage birds and other wildlife in to help with the pests instead of having to use pesticides. Peat-free composting, home composting, all of these things, which is to be used. Also, to keep the volunteers and participants, to get them to become more environmentally aware and environmentally friendly themselves, and to of course enjoy their own outdoor spaces, whilst and using environmentally friendly practices to garden.
Yeah. So we aim to sort of recruit some people who want some help with their outdoor spaces. They could be businesses, they could be individuals, they could be clubs like a sailing club or a cricket club or something. And then also to have people who like gardening or think they would like gardening, maybe they haven't any experience of it, to come and help do gardening type jobs in those places. And then as an offshoot, I mean, some of the wildlife friendly changes might involve, say, putting up bird boxes, might involve starting a compost heap, building a pond. So getting people to learn about those things and implement them. And with the idea is that every person who says they would like some help in their garden is visited, spoken to, the gardens looked at, the jobs that they want doing are discussed, and then an agreement is made of the wildlife friendly steps they will take. So it's a very sort of soft touch project, light touch project, and we negotiate small changes in the right direction. So the aim is small steps in the direction of being greener. So that might be not using any weed killer and say weeding instead, or it might be something like building a pond. So I would like to have a lot of people doing a lot of different things. At the moment, that's a bit of an issue. I also want to avoid any having to do any fundraising. So it's as sort of money free as possible.
Yeah.
I've made a little bit of progress, which Diane's going to tell you about, because she's supposed to be helping me make the progress.
So right, so obviously first and foremost the project is supported by Danielle and the Urban Wildlife Champions, Essex Wildlife Trust, but ourselves we have been trying to get some publicity going for it, and the types of things we've done is Jenny has provided done a very lovely leaflet. I've just actually it's on the screen, but we've got the back there as well. I don't know if anyone can see that, and there's the information inside, so this is for leafleting, for giving out whenever possible. Jenny has attended the tendering plant sale, which she was able to speak to people there. I've got it in the EWT volunteers newsletter, so that is ongoing now. Jenny's created a PDF which can be distributed electronically to people. And in addition, leaflets have been given out at local walks by my husband, who has been leading them, and also talks. We are going to be doing some talks and our own plant sale in the future, and that the leaflets will be promoted there, and Jenny will come along and talk to people there.
You're doing the next one.
Oh yeah. So as for the future plans, is put the information on our local Facebook page, the EWT Coaches Group Facebook page. Also, I think Jenny has got an idea to put it on get it on other Facebook pages. We've got a plant sale coming up on the 19th of May, where Jenny will come, as I've just said, to talk to our members, their attendees. Also, I think she's actually put something in a local free newspaper, or intends to do that, and do a tendering mail shot, and of course word of mouth, which is very important for anything.
The sort of problems we've been running into is the time of year. I would have liked to have sort of got this up and running a little bit sooner, but basically April, May is not a good time to recruit gardeners, because everyone's looking at their own gardens and panicking and thinking that they've never seen the gardens looking so sort of unkempt. So people get very involved in their own gardens at this time of year. It should be a good time to recruit people who need help with gardening, but I've been a bit hesitant about doing that when I haven't got anyone else to help with the gardening, because I'm already doing 7 gardens, which keeps me fairly busy. So that's been one of the problems. I've also had quite a lot of trouble with technology. which is why I'm round at Diane's, because we couldn't meet at my house because my house, I've only got an iPad and it doesn't do this webinar stuff. But again, that's been really helpful, having Diane helping.
Also local knowledge and contacts we see as it could be a problem, but I think that can be overcome. Because obviously the Essex Wildlife Trust have a lot of expert knowledge which can help there. And another major problem is contacting people due to the GDPR, which we as a local group also find difficult. We have to be very careful of, you can't just send things to people without they say you can. And really the only other couple of things that we thought could be a problem is the lack of expertise of volunteers. But again, that's something that it's a learned, it can be learned, and so that can be overcome. And sourcing materials, finally, we thought also could be could be enough.
Yeah. We'd want to use as many sort of reuse as many materials and recycle as many materials as possible, obviously. The data protection thing is a major issue, because I rather naively thought that if you contacted an organisation and they had members, that you'd be able to circulate stuff to members. However, this doesn't appear to be the case anymore. So we're going to have to try and work some ways around that. So yeah, it's early days at the moment.
Well, thank you very much for sharing, Jenny and Diane. It's really interesting to hear a very different project, and it's nice that you've spent a lot of time getting that sort of communication in place, because I think that really is key. Looking at who to get support from, what links to make. And regarding sort of the GDPR, it can be a difficult one to get around, which is why sometimes sort of newsletters and trying to get yourself into newspapers and things like that can be a good way of spreading information. And of course, as you said, Essex Wildlife Trust can share projects too. So I saw that it's on the volunteer newsletter this week. So fingers crossed you might get some feedback there. But I really love the idea of sharing wildlife friendly gardening actions. And when I do speak about the project, it sparks a lot of excitement. So I'm looking forward to working with you both as we go through. So thank you very much for sharing that. And hopefully it's given some inspiration to others listening today. So again, if you've got any questions, guys, just put it in the chat for Diane and Jenny, and we can go and do that at the end. Sorry, Jenny, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, David from the tendering group has suggested somebody to contact who might be able to send some information out for us. So I'm going to follow that up.
Brilliant. And sometimes it's about following those leads, isn't it? And just trying to talk to as many people as possible. So fingers crossed.
I really, really, really don't want to recruit lots of people who need help, though, and have no gardeners to help them. So I think that would set the worst sort of start to the project.
Absolutely. So it's about sort of recruiting those people who can volunteer, get a team of volunteers almost ready to rock and roll, as you say. But you've got
doing already if they were available.
Okay, well, thank you, ladies. I'm going to take you off video and unmute you now. We'll carry on with just the last bit of our session today. But thank you very much, and hopefully we'll hear from you again. Thank you. Right, let's just taking you off. Ooh. Okay, so just carrying on with the webinar, I've just got a few things to finish off. So I've gone through some of the fantastic things you can do to make sure your project is as successful as it can be. So looking at you know, your communication, your consideration, and the action that you want to take. But within that, of course, there is a lot of maybe skills and knowledge that you would like to develop. So as we go through this, and obviously the project is very new itself, I will be putting in training that I think is useful for some of the projects out there. And I have managed to get our first bit of training set up. So I just wanted to go through that with you for the end of this webinar. So, oh, hi ladies, you're back up here. Sorry ladies, seem to have come back up. So training, I just thought I'd let you know you can't register for it just yet, but I wanted to give you a heads up. You will be able to register for this training through a newsletter that I send out to everybody. So the training will be on the 30th of June. And it will be focused all around grassland habitat. So looking at why grassland habitat is important in our green spaces and on our road verges, and looking at wildflowers as well. So helping with that ID of common species that you'll find in Essex. This will be a hands-on morning training, so you will be coming to a location and spending a morning, so 10 a.m. to 1 p.m, so a little bit of the afternoon as well, with an expert tutor. What I will do is I'm just giving you the heads up of that, but it will be in the newsletter. There will be limited spaces, so it's really first come, first served, but it won't be the only training that's on offer. I'm looking at hopefully doing another one of these, and then looking at training for other types of skill development, whether that be around urban bats or pond development or wildlife gardening. So please do look out. I will put the training up as and when on our newsletters. If you have questions about the training, please do let me know, and I will confirm the location of that in the coming weeks. Okay, so just to finish off, I'd like to thank everybody for coming along to the first webinar. It's all brand new, so I hope it was as useful as it could be. Just a reminder, if you haven't booked in your initial chat with me or your site visit, please do. My email is just on the bottom there, danielle@essexwt.org.uk. And another thank you really for signing up to become a champion. We couldn't create a wilder Essex without you, and we really do appreciate each and everyone's contribution. And I am excited to meet you. So if I haven't met you yet, you know, I'm really looking forward to looking at your projects or your visions and understanding what you want to achieve. So do get in contact with me. If you're in the middle of a project, again, it's the same thing. It might be that you want help to sort of just move it on or make new steps. So please do let me know. So we've got sort of 10 minutes left. If we do have any questions, now's the time, either to pop them in the chat, or if you raise your hand, I should be able to unmute you and pop you on so everybody can hear you. I'm just going to look through, see who I've got. Is that so? Diane, Jenny, you've got a question, you've put your hand up. So if I put you in first, hold on. Let me just unmute you. Oh, it's just a bit slow. I think you might have to unmute yourself. You're unmuted.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Yeah, hi. It's only the grasslands training sounds really interesting, but I'm going to be away then in Greece. So will there be another one on that?
So hopefully so. This is the sort of first pilot training session. Obviously with grassland habitat, it's quite a small season to do it in, but hopefully I should be able to get another date on. I will update in the newsletter. But yes, I will do, what I'll try and do is make sure training is on different days, different times every time I do it. So it won't always be, you know, on a weekday in the middle of the day. I will try and get them at the weekends as well. Just, you know, whatever the tutor's capacity is. We're coming up to a very busy period. So, but yeah, fingers crossed I'll be able to get another date in.
Yeah.
Yes, Jenny.
Right. My question is, when you do your stuff on grassland, do you remember what I was saying about small steps in the right direction?
Yes.
Lots of people think the neighbours might have a fit, including my fella, if the front lawn becomes a meadow. So the small step in the right direction is, if you have grass, to maybe have it so that it's got some wildflowers in. And people quite like things like clover and daisies sometimes, less keen on dandelions, although bees really like it. But if it would be possible, I mean, short turf is a native habitat, and there are some species, I think, that depend on some short turf for their survival. And could we have something in the grassland talk about short turf? Because I think I could persuade people to have short turf with wildflowers in it and sort of food species for things, and then encourage them to have some meadow in the back.
Yeah, so alongside this sort of hands-on training day, I will also be doing a webinar specifically about wildflower meadows. As you say, yeah, the sort of grassland habitats do actually need a variety of sort of structural diversity. So different heights suit different species. So we'll be looking at, as you say, because this is very much geared towards towns and villages, how to bring your community on that journey with you, what actions to take to make it an easier transition and hopefully bring people on board with you. One of the things that we've seen work really, really well is actually mowing in purposeful lines and paths. Yeah, so it becomes a managed, it's a managed space. So it's not just let to sort of go, whoa, crazy, we're not doing anything with it. It brings that purposefulness to it. So there will be a webinar that addresses all of that as well. Great question, thank you.
But it would be really helpful to know how to make a short turf lawn with some biodiversity in it, rather than the desert that people normally have.
Absolutely, yeah, and then that sort of circles back into particular mowing regimes, and then looking at what you've got. Some people find that they actually have lots of wildflowers already sort of bursting to come out. Some people find that their area is very grass dominated and they potentially need to plant wildflower seeds, yellow rattle being a really good one to start with. So yeah, we'll look at all different types of actions in that webinar, not your sort of just generic sort of no mow and see what happens, but looking at different ways people can be sort of brought in on that journey, and addressing, lots of people have the need for it to be tidy and clean, and addressing how that can be brought in to a grassland habitat. So yeah, and I'll come up with again in that newsletter dates of the next webinar, and again what I'm going to do is there'll be every other month. I will try and change the time and the dates. It's not always going to be on a Wednesday or a Tuesday or a Thursday, whatever it might be. It will change about, so making it as easier for everyone to attend as possible.
Brilliant, thank you.
No problem. Okay, we've just got another question. I think it's Kate, so I'm just going to unmute you, Kate, so we can hear from you. Right, I've enabled your microphone, Kate, so you just might need to unmute yourself. And I can pop you on camera if you'd like to be on camera as well. Hi, Kate, we can see you. I'm not sure we can't hear you yet. So there's like a little, it's like a microphone icon. Yeah, you just have to press it to unmute yourself. Not working. Okay, do you want to type your question in the chat, and I can come back to it? Oh, okay. Not a problem. If you want to, then what you can do is just put your question on an email to me, and I can see if I can answer it that way. Thank you. I'll take you off camera, Kate, but thank you very much, and I'll try and answer it via email. Okay, Pascal, I've seen that you've written, are you still taking on more volunteers? Yes, so Urban Wildlife Champions Project, it's open. You can still go on the landing page and sign up. So if you've got people that are interested, you can, send it forward. I'm also talking to people that are interested before they sign up. So it might be that they want to have a chat first, get to find out more about the project. This is also going to be recorded, so I'll be sending that out in the newsletter as well for people to listen to. So yes, we're trying to sign up as many people as we can. We're actually over 60 thus far signed up. I haven't managed to speak to everyone yet though. Okay, I think that was the last question. I'm just looking through. Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, if anyone else out there has any questions, perhaps they're, not keen to share it today, or they might have questions come up later in the week, don't hesitate to email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But thank you very much for everybody attending, and I will see you on the next webinar or in person at our site visit or initial chat. And thank you very much to Diane, Jenny and John for presenting their fantastic projects. It was really interesting. So thank you very much, everybody, and speak to you soon. See you later.